Hello, this is Brian Hegney, Instructor of Communication at High Point University. This is part 2 of how to make a meme on your own, all by yourself using Photoshop. So the first video was about kind of selecting images, bringing them into Photoshop. I masked Nancy Pelosi. If you shift-click any mask, you can turn off your mask and see what that image looked like. And then I duplicated Nancy's, this layer, the masked image layer, into the Michaela Maroney image here. And so now our job for this video is to kind of make it look normal, make sure Nancy is kind of in this picture, right? So the first thing I want to do is turn Nancy Pelosi into a smart object, or turn the layer into a smart object. And turning it into a smart object is something we'll cover in class. And what it's just, well, number one, let's just do it. You should know why I'm going to do this. So I'm going to control click. Oh, now, of course, if you're on a Mac, you can control click this layer, the Nancy layer. I'm going to right click on it because I'm on a Windows machine, and I'm going to say convert to smart object. Now you can't select the mask and do it. So if you select the little mask icon on that layer, it's not going to work. You won't have those options. If you select the image icon, you're not going to have those options. You have to click around where the name of the layer is, or the blank space in the layer. That's what I always do. And that's when you have those options. So convert to smart object. I'm going to do that. It changes the iconography, and we'll get into smart objects maybe in this little video. But for right now, all you need to know is that allows us to resize Nancy Pelosi's layer without losing any resolution. So I'm going to hit Command T, and I'm going to hold down Shift while I drag the corners. If I don't hold down Shift, I could distort Nancy Pelosi. I want to hold down Shift, so I'm not going to distort her. And I'm going to make her a little smaller than Michaela, but larger than the audience members, because I kind of want Nancy Pelosi to look like she's in the background. So because of perspective, she's going to look smaller than Michaela, but larger than the audience. And I'm going to place her here. Now it still looks like that Nancy Pelosi is in front of Michaela because of two reasons, or let's say three reasons. Number one, she's in front of that blue bar. Number two, Michaela is the camera focused on Michaela and not focused on the background. So anything beyond Michaela should be a little bit blurry. So Nancy Pelosi should be blurrier, and of course a little bit more washed out in terms of color, I believe, or maybe even darker. Maybe darker, because the lighting is on Michaela, so Nancy would be out of the light. That's what. So those are the three things that we're going to fix right now. Number one, I'm going to turn off Nancy Pelosi's layer by just clicking on the little visibility icon. I'm going to go to the background. I'm going to hold down Z and kind of move in here. And what my job right now is to select this little lower thirds icon. And guess what I'll use? I will use the quick select tool. And I'm going to just left click it there, left click it there, left click it here, here, until I can select it all. Just keep going. Of course, when I want to deselect anything, I can use my Alt button. I don't need to select all of it, just a little bit of it, because if I turn on Nancy, yeah, I only need to get this stuff around here. So I've got it selected. I have that background selected, which is from where I'm getting this lower third imagery. And I'm just going to hit Control-C, Control-V. If you're on a Mac, I think it's Command-C, Command-V. I copied and pasted it. And now, if I turn off the background layer, you'll see that's all I have. All right? I can add Nancy behind that. If I had Nancy above that layer, right, she would still be above it. So I'm going to make sure layer 1 that I just copied and pasted is above Nancy, and that Nancy is on top of the background in the layer stack. If Nancy was on the bottom, well, she can't because the background is locked. I'll keep that locked. That's fine. But now that looks a little bit better. Of course, there's always some cleanup I will have to do here. And you know what? Maybe I'll do that right now. I am okay with, for right now, erasing this. Normally I don't erase my pixels, but I'll do that right now, and I'm just kind of cleaning this up just a little bit. I'm using the eraser tool, and I used my brackets to kind of resize my little eraser depending on what I needed. There we go. Hold down Z, zoom out. There! There's step one. I made Nancy behind this little thing. The next thing I need to do is I need to blur Nancy. Now, Nancy Pelosi's layer is a smart object. That means I can use these filters. Up here at the top where it says filter, I can go down to blur, and I want to go down to Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur is just my favorite blur. It's the easiest blur to use, I think. It's extremely helpful. I'm going to click it. While the Nancy Pelosi Smart Object layer is selected, click it. What this allows me to do, now I have to find Nancy's layer in here, so I'm actually going to click the zoom out tool. Oh, there she is. So reposition it here, zoom in, reposition, zoom in, reposition, zoom in a little bit. Okay, because I want to see what that blur is going to do. 1.8 pixels, maybe a little bit less. I do want to see her a little bit. That's what she looks like before. When I let go of my mouse cursor, she'll blur, and I'll say okay. Now the cool thing about a smart object is when I put a Gaussian blur on it, I can always turn it off and go back to normal. Perfect. So she's blurred a little bit. I like that. Now she's starting to look like she's in the background between Michaela and the audience. Great. Only 6 minutes. Awesome. The next thing I might want to do is add an adjustment layer. That's right. And I think what I'd want to do is darken her up a little bit. And there are many ways to do that. I could use the brightness contrast. I could use levels and increase the black pixels using the midtone slider. I could even put on a photo filter that's like a dark photo filter. Not sure what I'll do. Ooh, I could also put on a hue saturation and change lightness down. Oh, look what happens. I'm darkening the entire image, right? So how would I change that? I've got my hue saturation adjustment layer here. It's right above the Nancy Pelosi image. So I'm going to clip that adjustment layer. And doing that, the adjustment layer, hue saturation, will only affect the image right below it. So click that little button. And now I can do that. You know what? I'm not loving that. I'm not really loving it. I don't like the way that darkens Nancy Pelosi too much. So I'm going to drag that to the trash. And instead I am going to use the levels adjustment layer. I'm still going to clip it. And I'm just going to drag the midtone slider to the right, which will kind of darken some of Nancy Pelosi a little bit. See if I toggle that on and off, you can see the difference. She's still blurred. You know what? I might want to blur Nancy Pelosi a little bit more, and because it's a smart object, I can always double click that filter and increase the blur. I can say okay, and then you can say, Hagney, that's way too much! And I'll say, I know, I wanted to show you that you seriously can keep adjusting that blur. Oops, I have to go back and find her. There she is. Alright, 2.3 might be good. Yeah. Alright, so that is what I've done. Oh, the next thing I wanted to do is kind of show you what a smart object is really for, and I think I can do that. Yeah, I've got plenty of time. And I haven't added text yet, but I want to go back. Like this smart object that I've called Nancy, I turned it into a smart object. If I double click it, right here in the icon, double click, I go back to the original image here. So I select that, or I shift click that, and there she is. And what I can do is I can actually edit the thing. Well, what if I say I don't want to see her head? Well, let's not be morbid. So I'll actually say, what if I say I don't want to see her her arm? I don't know. Let's do the arm. Let's do her hair. Let's do her hair. That's safe. I can click on the mask. I can make sure I'm painting black, and I can kind of paint over here. Yeah, maybe I'll give her like a pixie cut. Is that a pixie cut? With hunched shoulders. I don't know. This is just for explanation purposes. I can click, notice a new tab opened up called Nancy.psb. That means Photoshop big for some reason, but that's what happens when we go into the Smart Object. I can click the X, make sure I say yes, I'm going to save it, and it updates that image in my final thing. And then I can always say, no, that was terrible. Terrible idea, Brian. I'm going to go back into the Smart Object, click on the mask again, this time paint white because I want to get that stuff back. Paint her hair back. And then if I click the X button and say, yes, I want to save this, like, she'll be back there. Of course, look at the background is there. Oh no, I have to fix it again. I can still go back and use this quick selection tool. Make sure the image is selected. Reselect her hair. Deselect the flag stuff. And now with her hair selected, is that what I wanted to do? Well, I'll keep selecting her body because I'll show you what I'm going to do. There we go. With her body selected, I can actually right-click and say Select Inverse. And now I've selected everything but that selection. I can go back, click on the mask, switch my colors to make sure I'm painting black again by clicking the little arrow. Click on my brush tool and paint black. And notice because I have everything but her body selected, I can easily just paint on the background there and get rid of it. And then I can hit Control D or Command D if you're on a Mac to deselect everything. And I can come in here and just with my freehand paint black here. There we go. And that should be okay. There we go. Here we go. There we go. Oh, and that's kind of nice. Alright, and now I will click X and I make sure to save it. And now she's back to where she was. So just let you know what that Smart Object is. Does a number of things. It allows you to continue editing. Almost like another Photoshop document within a Photoshop document, but it also allows your filters to be non-destructive and you can easily go back and edit those. And also what I didn't tell you is that if I were to make Nancy Pelosi really large again and resize this whole entire image, oops, let's click on this, there we go. I can shift drag this and she didn't lose any of her resolution, which is helpful. So I'm going to hit Command Z though because I don't want to do that. And now I'm going to save this as a Photoshop document. I'm going to save this as meme.psd. Say OK, maximize compatibility. And now I have the meme. All I need to do is add some text, and we'll do that later. All right, bye-bye. Bye-bye.